Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The Croatian heavyweight prospect Alen Babic will look to keep the hype train rolling on when he faces English journeyman Tom Little on November 21st in the UK. So Babic heading into this fight 5-0, looking for another stoppage against Little, who has a record of 10 wins, 8 losses, and 5 of those losses coming by way of stoppage. So on the face of it, this is a situation where Babic should go in a favourite, should be able to stop Little, but obviously these fights are not fought on paper, and we'll come to a few reasons why Tom Little could make it a bit tricky and awkward a bit later on. But in terms of the face of this, Alen Babic being a prospect, Little being a guy that's a journeyman that he should get by, he needs to look good, tick a couple of things in the column to make sure that people actually think this guy is actually real, because at the moment it feels more gimmick than actual substance. And you can't declare after beating a Tom Little that you're ready for the best in the division, because if you were, you wouldn't be facing a Tom Little. But there is a situation with 5 fights on the ledger at the moment. The opposition is only going to be of a certain level, but they have managed to build quite a bit of buzz and hype. There is it feels like a gimmicky type thing with this whole savage persona that Alen Babic has, and he is looking to go in there, take his opponent out with every single punch, and he's got a 3-round strategy. Basically, he's trying to knock you out, and it's 3 rounds or bust. But Little, his opponent for this fight, has proven before that he can make it tricky and awkward for his opponents. He's fought the likes of Filip Hrgović, Daniel Dubois, and David Price. None of them were able to stop him in under 4 rounds. So there is something to be said about his awkwardness and trickiness, his sort of survivability, being able to get through some of those early rounds. And those sort of first 3 rounds, that's where Alen Babic looks to make his money, looks to take his opponents out, and so far he has been successful. He's had the 5 fights more recently in the past couple of months. He stopped Niall Kennedy and Shondell Winters. Both of them he was able to get out in under 3 rounds, and he looked pretty good doing so. But in this fight, which I don't really see as much of a step up, I think that Shondell Winters, Niall Kennedy, they are basically on the same level as a Tom Little. Maybe his boxing skills, some things that he can do, maybe he's a little slicker, but it's the thing with Tom Little, he's never been able to capitalize on his abilities and translate it into the ring and sort of last for 3 minutes of every round. He can do a few things well, but for short periods. And I guess here's a little example of this. You may have seen this a couple of months ago when Joe Joyce was sparring with Tom Little. Little, basically clowning Joe Joyce at points when he was sparring with him. And this is the thing. When I was talking to Sam Jones, Joyce's manager, about this sort of sparring footage, he said Tom Little can do it for 20 seconds, do it in short bursts, but he can't sustain it. And against a guy like Alen Babic, if he is actually sort of switching off, and that's when Babic will go to work. So we could actually see Tom Little having his moments of success against Alen Babic, but if Babic has a chin and he keeps coming forward, keeps applying the pressure relentlessly, we could see it catching up with Tom Little. And despite the likes of Hrgović, Dubois, and David Price, for example, not stopping Little in under 4 rounds, we could potentially see with the all-action strategy of Babic something that does actually happen in those rounds. But first, before I get on to Little, his current condition and shape, because he has whipped himself into much better condition, I'll get to the press release which was issued when the undercard was confirmed. And we actually did know that this fight was coming, but the rest of the undercard had not been confirmed. They've put a press release out now, so the comment from Alen Babic is, it's been a busy period, but I don't want to rest, I want to fight. Tom's a cool guy, he's a warrior. We've exchanged messages on social media, but that won't hold me back. The Savage is waiting to be released and score another KO. And Little, he says, Alen makes too many mistakes. I've boxed at a much higher level and it will show. I'll be too much for him. This is too early in his career. I've been training for a while now for this fight in the back of my mind, so I'm prepared. The so-called Savage won't hear the final bell. And Alen Babic, in another post, see here on screen, he says, "This is it. Mentally and physically at 100%. There are no easy fights for me or my opponents. Everyone knows what the Savage brings into the ring. It's different. Chaos and destruction are his domain. He is hungry and he needs to be fed. My army of savages, we march again. I hear the beating of the war drums on November 21st, Wembley Arena. Savage will answer." And Little, meanwhile, see here on screen. So he has been whipping himself into much better condition. The left, this is sort of pre his transformation, and the right-hand side of the photo there, with him in much better condition. So he says, right, it's fight week, what to thank, and he's got a couple of names, and food, helping with the camp of my life, to get me in shape of my life, to give the fight of my life. I've got no worry of Dillian Whyte and Alen Babic having second thoughts. They are both proper men and will be happy I gave this camp my all, and we are ready to give a war to remember. So that is Tom Little, and he does look in much better condition. I guess one of the things, the knocks on his career has been he has looked a bit out of shape and out of condition in fights that he has been in. I can think for the Dubois and Hrgovic fights, he was in okay shape, but not as probably as good a condition as this. And if that does aid in his performance, it could be a much tougher fight for Alen Babic. But going back to sort of where I started with the video, if Alen Babic is going to do anything in the heavyweight division, he needs to go in here and really impress, do a number on Tom Little, stop him, and make us actually believe that he's the real deal. I know that there are some people who are saying, man, this guy can go far in the division. But at the moment, I'm seeing pretty much PR and hype. He hasn't been sort of tossed in there with some of the best guys in the division, far from it. But some of the names that he's fought at the current level he's at, they're actually okay. But they are of a certain level. So Niall Kennedy, Shaundell Winters, Tom Little, they're all about the same sort of level in my view. They can fight a bit, they can get the odd upset, but if you're a prospect with anything about you, you should beat them. And that's the thing here. Alen Babic, if he is going anywhere, needs to prove that he is a guy that is more than hype, that he's got some substance about him. And he should win this one if he does have anything about him. But I could see this looking a bit more tricky and awkward. And I guess one of the things we've discussed previously with Alen Babic, with his whole 3 rounds or bust strategy, well, what if he does sort of throw everything at Tom Little? Little is able to largely keep out of the way and not take too many big shots, conserve some energy, and he waits for Alen Babic to gas out. And if Babic gasses out, he becomes a much more beatable fighter. And if Tom Little takes advantage of that, I could see him winning this fight, but on the strength of who the favourite is and Alen Babic, what he's been doing so far, and Little with his record, I mean, let's face it as well, Tom Little has not really delivered as a pro compared to when you see him clowning the likes of Joe Joyce, and here is that clip again. You see that he does have skills, but how long can he actually, translate that into the ring rather than just for a few seconds at a time? Because Babic is going to be bringing that pressure, and Little's going to need to soak it up, and he's going to need to respond. But at this stage, I mean, I would pick Alen Babic to win this fight, and he has to, really, for his stock in the heavyweight division, because at the moment it does look more gimmick than reality. It's a carefully crafted sort of image that's been created, and some part of me thinks that, they're sort of pushing this Matchroom and Sky, because obviously they need to, an heir apparent to Dave Allen to some extent, to have one of those sort of interesting oddities that is also on a card, and eventually down the road maybe Babic and Allen do face each other. I could see that happening in 2021. But I would expect Alen Babic on recent form that he should win, but Little could make it tricky, and I'm not ruling out an upset in this one. How about you? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.